The argument started over something so stupid, I can't even remember what it was now. The gas bill, maybe? Or who was supposed to take out the recycling? All I know is that one minute, my husband, Mark, and I were having a standard, low-level disagreement in the kitchen, and the next, he deployed a weapon so devastating it shattered the foundations of our 7-year marriage. I trusted him with every broken piece of me, and he chose that moment to use the sharpest one to slit my throat. He said, looking at me with a coldness I'd never seen before, "Maybe if you were a little more focused on the details, you wouldn't be so careless." But then again, carelessness has always been your thing, hasn't it, Chloe? Just ask Sarah. The name hit the air and seemed to suck all the oxygen out of the room. My breath caught in my chest. The refrigerator hummed, the clock on the wall ticked, each sound amplified in the sudden, deafening silence. For a second, I was sure I had misheard him. He couldn't have. He wouldn't. Sarah was my best friend in high school. Was. When we were 17, I was driving her home on a rainy night. I was going a little too fast, the road was slick, and I took a turn too sharply. We hydroplaned and hit a tree. I walked away with a few broken ribs and a concussion. Sarah wasn't so lucky. She spent 6 months in the hospital and was left with a permanent, painful limp. She never blamed me, not once. Her family never sued. But the guilt. The guilt became a part of my DNA. It was a cold, heavy stone I carried in my gut every single day of my life. I never spoke about it. Not to my parents, not to therapists, not to anyone. Until Mark. Early in our relationship, during one of those late-night, soul-bearing conversations fueled by cheap wine and the intoxicating belief that we had found our one true person, I told him everything. I cried for hours, and he just held me. He stroked my hair and told me it wasn't my fault. He said my guilt was a testament to how much I loved her, and he promised he would help me carry that stone. He became the sole guardian of my deepest, most shameful secret. And in that moment, he had taken that secret, twisted it into a dagger, and stabbed me right in the heart. I just stared at him, my mouth agape. "What did you just say?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He had the audacity to look irritated, rolling his eyes as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Chloe. I was just making a point." A point? I could feel a hysterical laugh bubbling up inside me. By bringing up the worst moment of my entire life? The one thing you promised you would protect? He sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. This was his go-to move when he was losing an argument, feigned exhaustion. I was frustrated. You weren't listening to me. Sometimes you have to say something shocking to get a person's attention. He started unloading the dishwasher. The clatter of plates sounded like gunshots in the tense silence. He was acting like he'd made a slightly off-color joke, not like he had detonated a nuclear bomb in the middle of our living room. I couldn't be in the same room with him. I turned without another word, walked upstairs on unsteady legs, and locked myself in the guest bedroom. I slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor, wrapping my arms around my knees. The tears finally came, hot and silent. It wasn't just the cruelty of his words. It was the realization that followed. This wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. The weapons were usually smaller, the cuts less deep. I thought back to the time I was terrified of giving a presentation at work. The night before, as I was practicing my speech, he'd said, "Just try not to have a panic attack like you did in college. These people are your bosses, not your sociology professor." He'd framed it as a clumsy attempt at encouragement, but it had completely shattered my confidence. Or the time we were arguing about visiting my family and he'd casually mentioned, "Well, I can see where you get your anxiety from." A direct hit at my mother's struggles, something I had confided in him about. Each instance had been disguised as a poorly worded joke, a slip of the tongue, or him just being honest. And every time I had made excuses for him. He's stressed. He doesn't mean it that way. I'm being too sensitive. But sitting on the cold floor of the guest room, the pattern was laid bare, and it was horrifying. He collected my vulnerabilities like they were trading cards, saving them to play at the most opportune moments to win an argument, to make me feel small, to put me back in my place. And the secret about Sarah? That was his ace in the hole. A card he just played to win a fight over the goddamn recycling. I stayed in that room all night. He knocked once around midnight. "Chloe, are you seriously going to sleep in there? This is ridiculous." He didn't sound sorry. He sounded annoyed. I didn't answer. Eventually, I heard him go back to our bedroom. I didn't sleep. I just sat there, replaying 17 years of guilt and 7 years of marriage, trying to figure out where one ended and the other began. The next morning, I crept downstairs early to get ready for work before he woke up. But he was already in the kitchen, a cheerful smile on his face, holding a mug of coffee out to me. "Morning, sleepyhead. I made you coffee just the way you like it." The domestic bliss of the scene was so jarring, so completely at odds with the emotional carnage of the night before, that I felt a wave of nausea. This was his other move. Pretend it never happened. If he acted normal, then I would be forced to be the one to disrupt the peace, making me look like the one who couldn't let things go. I ignored the coffee and walked to the counter to get my keys. "We need to talk about what you said last night," I said flat. He sighed dramatically, the cheerful facade crumbling instantly. "Seriously, Chloe, I already told you I was frustrated. I apologized." "No, you didn't," I said, turning to face him. "You told me I was being dramatic. You've never apologized." "Fine, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I said it. It was a stupid thing to say. I was stressed from work. Are we good now?" His apology felt like a business transaction. He wasn't sorry for hurting me. He was sorry that his comment had created this inconvenient situation that was making him uncomfortable. I just looked at him, and for the first time, I felt nothing but cold, hard clarity. The man I thought I married, the one who helped me while I cried and promised to protect my deepest wounds, didn't exist. He had been replaced by this stranger who saw my pain as ammunition. "No," I said softly. "We're not good." I left for work without another word. The entire day was a blur. I sat in meetings, answered emails, and smiled at colleagues, all on autopilot. Inside, my mind was racing. Every memory of our life together was now tainted, viewed through this new, horrific lens. Was his proposal so romantic because he loved me, or because he knew I had deep-seated fears of being alone? Did he encourage me to quit my old job, the one I loved, because he supported my dream of freelancing, or because it would make me more financially dependent on him? Who was this man I had shared my bed with for 7 years? That evening, I called my sister, Jess. She lived 3 states away, but we were close. I told her everything, the words tumbling out of me in a jumbled, tearful mess. I told her about the accident, the guilt, and what Mark had said. For a long moment after I finished, there was only silence on the other end of the line. Then Jess said, her voice filled with a quiet fury I'd rarely heard, "I'm going to kill him." I let out a watery laugh. "Get in line." "Chloe, I never told you this because I didn't want to upset you, but I never liked him. There was always something off, something too polished, too perfect, like he was always playing a part." Her words were a balm on my raw nerves. I wasn't crazy. Someone else saw it. "He's always trying to make me feel like I'm the unstable one," I admitted. "That's the playbook, Chloe. That's what they do. They make you think you're insane so you don't trust your own judgment when you realize they're the monster." We talked for over an hour, and with every word I felt a layer of fog lifting. The confusion was being replaced by a cold, terrifying resolve. When I got home, Mark had pulled out all the stops. He'd ordered takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. He'd lit candles. A bouquet of peonies, my favorite, sat on the table. It was a textbook love bombing. "I wanted to do something nice," he said, his voice gentle. "I know I messed up. I hate when we fight." He came toward me, his arms open for a hug, but I flinched and took a step back. The hurt that flashed in his eyes was immediate and profound, and for a second, I almost felt guilty. That was his superpower, the ability to instantly make me feel like I was the one hurting him. "I can't do this, Mark," I said, my voice shaking. "I can't pretend that you just didn't use my deepest trauma against me to win a fight. I feel like I don't even know you." His face hardened. The gentle, apologetic husband vanished. "Oh, so that's it. You're just going to hold this over my head forever? One mistake in our entire marriage is just garbage?" "It wasn't one mistake," I shot back, my voice rising. "It was a pattern. You collect my insecurities and use them against me whenever it's convenient for you. This was just the one you were saving for a special occasion." He stared at me, his jaw tight. I could see the wheels turning in his head as he calculated his next move, his next line of attack. He knew the direct approach wasn't working. He knew the apologies and the grand gestures had failed. So he recalibrated, and what he said next was so much worse than what he'd said in the kitchen. It was a threat veiled in the language of concern. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know what, Chloe? Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't understand how much this still affects you. I think maybe it's time we cleared the air. For real." I stared at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" He gave me a small, tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm talking about Sarah. I think I should call her, just to talk, explain how much you're still struggling with what happened. I'm sure she'd want to know how you're turning that tragedy into a weapon to punish your husband years later. I bet she and her family would be very interested to hear about that." The blood drained from my face. It wasn't just a threat to expose my secret. He was threatening to reframe the entire narrative, to paint me not as a person consumed by guilt, but as a manipulative monster who was using the accident to control him. He was threatening to go to the one person in the world I felt I owed an eternal debt and poison her against me. He was threatening to not just use my trauma, but to desecrate its memory. In that moment, I realized I wasn't married to a man with a cruel streak. I was married to a monster, and he had just shown me that there was no line he wouldn't cross. He would burn my entire world to the ground just to feel powerful. The only question was whether I'd let him, or if I'd finally find the strength to grab a fire extinguisher. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. My entire world narrowed to the smug, confident look on his face. He had me. He knew he had me. The thought of Mark, with his smooth, convincing voice, calling Sarah and twisting my 17 years of guilt into a narrative of petty marital manipulation was more horrifying than I could imagine. It was a violation on a spiritual level. He wasn't just threatening to tell a secret. He was threatening to rewrite my history, to tarnish the one pure thing I had left from that tragedy, my remorse. Without a word, I turned and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't run. I moved with a strange, chilling calm. The shock had burned away the tears and the fear, leaving behind something cold and hard. I went upstairs to our bedroom, the one we had shared for 7 years, and pulled my suitcase from the top of the closet. I didn't bother opening drawers. I just swept the contents of my nightstand, the book I was reading, my hand cream, the little dish for my rings into the bag. He followed me, his footsteps heavy on the stairs. He stood in the doorway, his posture shifting from aggressive confidence to theatrical concern. "Chloe, what are you doing? Don't overreact." I ignored him, walking into the closet and pulling out a handful of sweaters and jeans. My movements were jerky, robotic. "He actually wouldn't have called her," he said, his voice softening. "I was just trying to make you see how serious this is, how much it hurts me when you pull away." The gaslighting was so blatant, so textbook, it was almost insulting. He was trying to frame his threat as an act of love. I zipped the overflowing suitcase, the sound echoing in the tense silence. "You're really leaving?" he asked, a note of disbelief in his voice. "You're going to throw away our marriage because I made one mistake?" "I didn't make a mistake," I said,
finally looking at him. My voice was devoid of emotion. "You made a choice. You showed me exactly who you are, and I believe you."
I pushed past him without letting our bodies touch. He grabbed my arm. "Chloe, don't." His grip wasn't violent, but it was firm. It was possession. I stopped and looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. "Let go of me, Mark," I said, the coldness in my voice so absolute it seemed to surprise even me, "or I will scream." He dropped his hand as if he'd been burned. A flicker of genuine fear crossed his face, quickly replaced by his default expression, righteous indignation. I walked downstairs, pulled on my coat, and left the house I had once called home, the sound of him calling my name following me out the door. The 2-hour drive to my sister Jess's house was a blur. I don't remember the roads or the traffic. I just remember clutching the steering wheel with white knuckles, the image of his face, twisted in that smug smile, burned into my mind. When I finally pulled into her driveway, she must have been watching from the window, because the front door flew open before I had even turned off the engine. She ran out and wrapped me in a hug before I was fully out of the car. I didn't cry. I was beyond tears. I just leaned into her, letting her support my weight. "You're safe here," she whispered, her voice fierce. "You're safe." Inside, she made me tea and sat with me on her couch, wrapped in a thick blanket. I told her what he had threatened to do, about calling Sarah. Jess's face, usually so open and kind, hardened into a mask of pure rage. "He is a monster," she said, her voice shaking. "Not a man, a monster." Hearing her say it, seeing my own horror reflected in her eyes, was the only thing that kept me from thinking I was the one who was crazy. For the next few hours, I felt a profound sense of relief. My phone was off. The world was just the four walls of Jess's cozy living room. But I knew it wouldn't last. Around 10 p.m., I finally turned my phone back on. It exploded with notifications. 15 missed calls from Mark. 32 text messages. I scrolled through them, my stomach tightening with each one. They started with feigned concern. "Chloe, please just let me know you're safe. I'm worried sick." Then they shifted to apologies. "I'm so sorry. I was a complete idiot. Please come home so we can talk." Then came the blame shifting. "I don't know why you're doing this. You're blowing everything out of proportion." And finally, the guilt tripping. "You're tearing us apart, Chloe. Don't let one bad night destroy 7 years of love." It was a masterclass in manipulation, a perfect cycle of abuse condensed into a few dozen texts. But there was another message, from our mutual friend Anna. My heart sank. "Hey, Chloe, I just got a really weird call from Mark. He said you guys had a fight and you took off. He sounds completely broken. He mentioned that old accident with high school. Said he thinks it's all coming back to haunt you. I'm here if you need to talk. Hope you're okay." I read the message twice, a cold dread spreading through me. It had already started. He wasn't just trying to control me. He was controlling the narrative. He was preemptively painting me as unstable, using the very trauma he had weaponized as proof of my fragility. He was seeding the ground, ensuring that if I ever told anyone what he'd done, they would see it through the lens he had created, the ramblings of a troubled, emotional woman. "He's telling people I'm having a breakdown," I said to Jess, my voice hollow. I showed her the text. She read it, her lips tightening into a thin line. "Of course he is. You need to get ahead of this, Chloe. You need to call a few people, your people, let them know what's happening before he poisons the well completely." But I was exhausted. The idea of having to defend my sanity to my own friends felt like a mountain I didn't have the energy to climb. "Not tonight," I whispered. "I can't." The next morning, I woke up feeling hungover, though I hadn't had a drop of alcohol. The emotional toll of the last 48 hours had left me drained. I was drinking coffee in Jess's kitchen when my phone rang. It was my mom.
I braced and answered, "Chloe? Honey, are you okay?" Her voice was tight with worry. "I'm fine, Mom. I'm at Jess's place." "At Jess's? Why?" "Mark just called me. He's beside himself with worry. He said you just left. He said you had a fight and brought up that awful accident with Sarah." I closed my eyes. The line went silent, but I could hear the unspoken question in the air. Why would you do that to him? He had gotten to her. He had called my mother. "Mom, it's not what he told you. It's complicated. He said he thinks you're having some sort of delayed reaction, that the trauma is affecting you more than you let on. He said he tried to be there for you, but you pushed him away." Her voice was laced with that gentle, patronizing tone people use when they think you're on the verge of a breakdown. It was brilliant, insidiously, terrifyingly brilliant. He hadn't told her my threat. He had only told her my reaction. He had presented my pain as the problem and himself as the concerned, helpless husband struggling to cope. He was using my own mother to gaslight me from 3 states away. "Mom, I have to go," I managed to say, my throat closing up. I ended the call before she could reply. I slid my phone across the kitchen table and stared at Jess, my eyes wide with a new kind of terror. "He called my parents," I whispered. "He told them I'm mentally unstable because of the accident." Jess came over and put her hands on my shoulders. "Okay," she said, her voice firm and steady, a lifeline in the storm. "Okay. This is war then. He wants to use your past against you? Fine. We'll use the one thing he can't manipulate, the truth, and we are going to document every single lie he tells. We are going to build a fortress of facts so high that his gaslighting can't get over the walls."
The resolve in her voice sparked something in me. The cold, hard thing that had formed in my chest after his threat began to glow with a faint heat. He thought he could control the story because he was the only one willing to tell it. He thought my shame and my guilt would keep me silent. He thought I would be so busy defending my sanity that I would never have the chance to go on the offensive. He was wrong. For the first time in 7 years, I felt the heavy stone of guilt in my gut shift. It was still there, but it was no longer just a burden. It was becoming a whetstone, and I was going to use it to sharpen the truth into a weapon of my own. My first move was to send a single clear text message, not to Mark, but to Anna, the friend he had contacted. I wrote, "Thanks for checking in. The truth is, Mark and I are separating. He threatened to use my accident with Sarah to hurt me during a fight, and I am not safe with him. I'm okay, just need some space." My finger hovered over the send button. It was terrifying. I was breaking the silence. I was drawing a line in the sand. I was taking back my own story. It felt like stepping off a cliff, not knowing if I would fly or fall. But as I looked at Jess, her face a mask of unwavering support, I knew I wouldn't be falling alone. I hit send. The war had begun. And for the first time, I wasn't just defending. I was fighting back. Hitting send felt like jumping into ice-cold water. For a full minute, I just stared at the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had done it. I had said the unsayable, put his monstrous behavior into clear, undeniable words. Jess put her hand over mine on the table. "Breathe," she murmured. "Whatever happens next, you're not alone." The 3 little dots indicating Anna was typing appeared, disappeared, and appeared again. My stomach clenched. Was she drafting a message of support or one of cautious neutrality? Was she going to tell me I was overreacting? Finally, the message came through. It was longer than I expected. "Oh my God, Chloe, I am so sorry. I knew something was wrong. The way he was talking, he was trying way too hard to sound concerned. To threaten you with Sarah's accident, that's not just a fight, that's psychotic. Please stay with Jess. Don't go back there. Do you need anything? Do you want me to call him and tell him what a monster he is? Just say the word."
The relief that washed over me was so intense, my knees felt weak. I hadn't realized how much I'd been bracing for disbelief. To be seen, to be believed, in that moment, felt like being given a lungful of air after nearly drowning. "She believes me," I whispered to Jess, showing her the phone. Jess smiled, a fierce protective expression on her face. "That's one. One down, a whole army of his lies to go." We spent the next hour making a plan. It felt empowering. We made a list of the key people in our lives: my dad, Mark's more reasonable sister, Clara, our two closest couple friends. We decided I would call them myself over the next couple of days. The message would be simple, factual, and calm. Mark and I are separating. He has been emotionally abusive and I am no longer safe. I am at Jess's. I will share more when I can. No hysteria, no long, rambling explanations, just the cold, hard truth. Let his frantic, overwrought performance contrast with my quiet dignity. It was a solid plan, a fortress of facts, just as Jess had said. But Mark was never one to let other people control the battlefield. Just as we were mapping out our second phone call, my phone buzzed with a notification from a local community Facebook group. My blood ran cold. It was a post from Mark. It was a picture of us, smiling on a hike last fall. The caption read, "Urgent. Has anyone seen my wife?" My beloved wife, Chloe, left our home yesterday evening after a small disagreement. She is struggling deeply with some past trauma and may be confused or not thinking clearly. Her sister has unfortunately been unhelpful in this situation. We are all desperately worried. Chloe, if you see this, please just come home. We love you. Everyone, please share. He had posted my picture. He had tagged me. He had publicly declared me a missing, mentally unstable person. He'd even thrown Jess under the bus, painting her as a malevolent influence. The comments were already flooding in. "Oh my God, Chloe, I am so sorry. I knew something was wrong. The way he was talking, he was trying way too hard to sound concerned. To threaten you with Sarah's accident, that's not just a fight, that's psychotic. Please stay with Jess. Don't go back there. Do you need anything? Do you want me to call him and tell him what a monster he is? Just say the word." I was being erased in real time, replaced by this caricature he had created, the tragic, confused wife. My phone started ringing. It was a number I didn't recognize. Then another. People from the Facebook group. "They think I'm a missing person," I said, a hysterical laugh escaping my lips. "He's going to have the police looking for me next." "Let him," Jess said, her voice steely. "We'll show them the post. We'll show them the texts. We'll tell them he's harassing you. Let him expose himself for the manipulator he is." Just then, a car pulled into Jess's driveway. A familiar-looking sedan. My heart stopped. It was Mark. He got out of the car, his face a mask of carefully constructed anguish, and walked up to the front door. He didn't knock. He just stood there, as if waiting for a camera crew to appear. Jess stood up. "Stay here," she commanded. "Lock the door behind me." She walked to the door, unlocked it, and stepped outside, pulling it shut behind her. I rushed to the window, my heart pounding, and watched the confrontation unfold. Even through the glass, I could see the shift in Mark's demeanor the moment he saw it was Jess, not me. His heartbroken husband mask flickered, revealing the rage underneath. He started talking, gesturing wildly. Jess stood her ground, her arms crossed, shaking her head. He took a step toward her, his voice rising. She took a step forward to meet him, pointing a finger at his chest. I couldn't hear their words, but I could feel the venom. This went on for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he seemed to deflate. He shot one last hateful glare at the house, at the window where he knew I was watching, got back in his car, and peeled out of the driveway. Jess came back inside, her face pale but resolute. "He demanded to see you," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "He said you were having a psychotic break and I was kidnapping you. I told him if he didn't leave my property, I would call the police and show them the post where he's labeling you as a missing person. I told him we have documented his threats. He called me a bitch and said I was trying to ruin his life." "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "He's desperate," Jess said. "He overplayed his hand with that Facebook post. He thought it would box you in, but it's just made him look unhinged." But as I took the post down, reporting it for harassment, I knew she was only half right. To the people who knew the truth, he looked unhinged. To the dozens of strangers in our community, I was the one who needed help. His poison was spreading. We spent the rest of the evening fielding calls from concerned friends and family members, calmly repeating our simple, factual statement. Some, like Anna, were immediately supportive. Others were confused, caught in the crossfire of our two competing narratives. But the biggest question mark, the one that loomed over everything, remained. Sarah. Mark's threat to call her was still hanging in the air. His public meltdown only made me more certain that he was capable of anything. He had weaponized my past, and now it was time for me to disarm it. I couldn't let him hold that power over me for one more second. "I have to call her," I said to Jess late that night, the words tasting like fear in my mouth. "I have to tell her myself, before he does." Jess looked at me, her expression soft. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" I wasn't. The thought of voluntarily opening that 17-year-old wound was terrifying. Sarah and I were still in touch, but it was a careful, distant friendship. We exchanged Christmas cards. We liked each other's posts on social media. We never, ever talked about the accident. It was the great unspoken chasm between us. But Mark had turned it into his playground. The only way to kick him out was to build a bridge across it myself. "I'm not ready," I admitted, "but I have to be. It's the only way to take the gun out of his hand." My hands were shaking as I found her number in my contacts. It took me 3 tries to tap the call button. It rang once, twice. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I was about to hang up when she answered. "Chloe? Hey, is everything okay?" Her voice was the same as I remembered, warm and slightly scratchy. She sounded happy to hear from me, and that just made what I was about to do feel so much worse. "Hey, Sarah," I started, my voice trembling. "I'm so sorry to call you out of the blue like this. Is now a bad time?" "No, not at all. What's up?" I took a deep breath, Jess's hand squeezing my shoulder for support. "There's something I need to tell you. It's about Mark, and it's about the accident." There was a pause on the other end of the line. For a horrifying second, I thought she had hung up. Then she said softly, "Okay, I'm listening." And so I told her. I told her everything. About the argument, about how Mark had thrown the accident in my face, about his threats to call her and her family and twist the story, about his campaign to paint me as mentally unstable. I didn't cry. I just laid the facts out, one ugly truth after another. When I finished, the silence was absolute. I had said it all. I had laid the ugliest parts of my life at her feet. All I could do was wait for her judgment. "That man," Sarah said, finally, her voice low and tight with a fury that startled me. "That man is a monster. Chloe, are you somewhere safe?" The question was so full of immediate, uncomplicated concern for me, not for the drama, not for the story, but for me, that the tears I'd been holding back finally broke free. "I'm at my sister's," I sobbed. "Okay, good," she said, her voice firm. "Listen to me. That accident was exactly that, an accident. It was not your fault. It was a rainy night and we were stupid kids. The only person at fault here is the man who would take your pain, our pain, and try to use it as a weapon. If that coward ever contacts me or my family, I will tell him exactly where he can go. You have nothing to feel guilty about. Do you hear me?" I did hear her. And in that moment, the stone in my gut didn't just shift, it shattered. 17 years of shame, weaponized by Mark and nurtured by my own silence, dissolved in the face of her fierce, unwavering grace. Mark's ultimate weapon was gone. He had threatened to burn my world down with a secret, but he never understood that the secret's power didn't come from the truth of what happened. It came from the shame I carried. And Sarah, with a few simple words of kindness, had just taken that shame away. Mark didn't know it yet, but he had just lost the war, and I had just gotten my oldest friend back.
The call with Sarah was a turning point. It wasn't just that she had disarmed Mark's biggest weapon, she had rearmed me. The shame he'd cultivated for years was gone, replaced by a clarity and a righteous anger I had never felt before. I hung up the phone feeling lighter than I had in nearly 2 decades. Jess hugged me tight. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of hope. He couldn't hurt me with that anymore. The next morning, I woke up with a singular purpose. It was time to stop reacting and start acting. My first call was to a lawyer. I explained the situation, the emotional abuse, the threats, the public harassment via his Facebook post, and his escalating behavior. She was pragmatic and direct. "He's following a classic emotional abuser's playbook," she said. "The public performance of the concerned husband is designed to isolate you and discredit you before you can speak. We need to shut it down, hard." She drafted a cease and desist letter to be sent to Mark via courier. It was a masterpiece of legal fury, outlining his harassment, demanding he remove all public posts about me, and stating that any further contact must be through her office. It also included a crisp, clear statement. "Miss Jensen has ample documentation of your threats to weaponize her past trauma against her, a tactic of emotional abuse that will be brought to light in any future legal proceedings." The lawyer also advised me to go to the local police station, not to press charges, but to file an informational report. "It creates a paper trail," she explained. "If he escalates further, we have a documented history of his behavior." Walking into the police station was intimidating, but I did it. I showed the officer the Facebook post, the string of unhinged text messages, and explained the situation calmly and factually. He was professional and, to my relief, took it seriously. Mark's stunt had backfired. Instead of making me look unstable, it made him look like a harasser. The day the courier delivered the legal letter to Mark must have been a sight to behold. I imagine his shock, then his fury. Around noon, I got an email, not from him, but from his mother. It was a long, rambling screed about how I was tearing the family apart, how I was a cruel and ungrateful wife, and how dare I involve lawyers and police over a simple marital spat. She accused me of trying to ruin her son's life. It was clear Mark had run straight to mommy, painting himself as the victim of his crazy, vindictive wife. I didn't reply. I simply forwarded it to my lawyer, who added it to the growing file she labeled Jensen, harassment. A few days later, something incredible happened. I got a call from Mark's sister, Clara. "Chloe, I am so sorry," she said, her voice strained. "My mother just called me and told me what was going on. I want you to know I believe you. I've seen Mark's temper. I've seen how he twists things. The things he said about you and that Facebook post, it's monstrous." I told our mother that she was enabling a bully, and she hung up on me. To hear this from his own sister was a validation so profound it brought tears to my eyes. Mark's campaign of lies was so extreme, so over the top, that it was starting to crack the foundations of his own family. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place that weekend. I was still at Jess's, sorting through boxes of my old things from her attic, when I found a small, dusty photo album. It was from high school. I flipped through the pages, images of awkward teenagers with bad hair and braces, and then I saw it, a picture of me and Sarah, arms slung around each other, laughing into the camera at a football game. It was dated 2 weeks before the accident. We looked so happy, so carefree. An idea sparked in my mind. It was audacious. It was bold. It was exactly what I needed to do to take back my story, not just from Mark, but from the shadows of my own mind. I took a picture of the photo with my phone. Then, I logged into my own Facebook account for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. I ignored the notifications, the messages, the tags from Mark's horrible post. I took a deep breath and wrote my own. I uploaded the old photo of me and Sarah. The caption read, "This is my best friend, Sarah. When we were 17, a tragic accident changed both of our lives. For years, I carried a heavy burden of guilt, a private pain that I only ever shared with my husband, Mark. I trusted him to protect that vulnerability. Instead, he chose to weaponize it. He used my deepest pain to try and control me, to win arguments, and to silence me. When I finally had the courage to leave, he launched a public campaign to paint me as mentally unstable, using the very trauma he exploited as his proof. This is not a story of a woman having a breakdown. This is the story of a woman waking up. Emotional abuse is insidious. It thrives in silence and shame. It makes you believe you are the crazy one. I am not crazy, I am not unstable, and I am not ashamed. I am a survivor. I am speaking out now not for revenge, but to reclaim my own story and to let anyone else living in that silent fear know you are not alone and you are not what happened to you." I ended the post by tagging Sarah, not as a victim, but as a testament to our enduring friendship. I tagged Jess, my rock, and I tagged Clara, Mark's sister, as a quiet thank you for her courage. Then, with a shaking finger, I hit post. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. It was like a dam breaking. Friends, family, old colleagues, even acquaintances flooded the comments with messages of love and support. "I am speechless, sending you so much strength. Chloe, this is the bravest thing I've ever read. We see you and we believe you." Anna shared it, Clara shared it. My dad, a man of few words, simply commented, "My daughter, my hero." But the most important comment came from Sarah herself. She wrote, "I have never been more proud to call you a friend, Chloe. Your strength inspires me. The only tragedy here is that you had to endure the cruelty of a man who does not deserve even to speak your name. Your past is not a weapon. It's a testament to your resilience. I love you." It was over. I had taken back the narrative in the most public way possible. I had turned his weapon of shame into my armor of truth. Mark deleted his entire Facebook profile within hours. His campaign of lies had been utterly annihilated by one simple, powerful act of truth-telling. The divorce was quiet and swift. My lawyer was a shark. Faced with the mountain of documented harassment and the public implosion of his reputation, he agreed to everything. He just wanted it to be over. He retreated into the shadows, his power gone. I never spoke to him again. I heard through the grapevine that his relationship with his sister Clara is permanently broken. His mother still defends him, but no one is listening anymore. As for me, I moved into a new apartment, a bright, sunny space that is all my own. I started seeing a therapist, my choice this time, to unpack not just the accident, but the 7 years of subtle manipulation I had endured. It's a long road, but it's my road. Sometimes I think about what he tried to do, how he took the most sacred part of my pain and tried to twist it into a tool to hurt me. He thought it was my greatest weakness, but he was wrong. My ability to feel that guilt, that remorse, that deep aching empathy for a friend I had hurt, that wasn't a weakness. It was my humanity. And in the end, that was something he could never understand and never, ever take from me. He tried to bury me, but he didn't know I was a seed. And now, finally, I am free to grow.